St. Petersburg breathed a quiet fog that morning, its streets slick from the endless drizzle that made the whole city feel like it was whispering secrets behind glass. The light in the kitchen was pale, blue-tinted. It was too early for anything to make sense. Alexei stood barefoot on the cold tiles, a mug of half-drunk coffee in one hand, the other reaching for Kira's phone left on the edge of the table. An unusual oversight. Kira never left her phone behind, not when she was headed to yoga. That was her sacred, untouchable space. No phones, no noise, no husband. He meant to just drop it into her gym bag. Simple, thoughtless, but just as his fingers brushed the screen, it lit up. Last night was fire, counting the hours till I see you again. His breath caught. A second, maybe less. That's all it took for something deep inside him to crack. A name wasn't visible, just the message. But the implication hit like a punch to the sternum. He should have looked away, should have placed the phone where it belonged and forgotten it. But something in the pit of his stomach, sharp and low, like a camera shutter clicking open, froze him in place. The phone blinked dark again. Then his reflection in the blank screen stared back, confused, wide-eyed, already imagining too much. A minute passed, then two. His heart tapped at his ribs like it was asking permission to break. And then he unlocked it. No password. Kira never hid anything. Or, so he thought. It opened to the chat. The same message, followed by a string of them. Photos. One of her from behind, laughing, hair twisted into a messy knot. Another, her hand, unmistakable with that tiny tattoo on her wrist, holding a glass of wine in a dim bar. Then a voice message. He didn't press play. Not yet. He put the phone down gently as if it might explode. Walked to the sink, stared out the window at the gray sky. His fingers trembled. This wasn't supposed to happen to him. Them. He thought their marriage was solid. Sure, they'd grown quieter lately, but who doesn't after years together? And Kira was light. She was life. He loved her in a quiet, complete kind of way. But this was something else. He looked back at the phone. It just sat there, silent, innocent. His mind had already begun spiraling. What if this was a joke? A mistake? What if it wasn't? His hand moved on its own. He reached back for the device, tapped open the full thread. Scroll. The truth unfolded not with one blow, but with the slow, suffocating weight of confirmation. Kira had a life he didn't know about, one that didn't include him. Alexei couldn't remember the walk from the kitchen to the bedroom, only the sound of rain tapping the window, soft and persistent, like it knew something he didn't. The phone sat in his pocket now, its presence like a stone pressing against his side. Kira would return from yoga in under an hour. He should have been folding laundry, replying to work emails, doing something normal. Instead, he sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor with the quiet intensity of someone watching their own life burn behind a pane of glass. He hadn't opened the voice message yet, not because he didn't want to know, because a part of him already did. There's a kind of silence that settles in when something breaks inside you. It isn't loud, it's surgical, precise, cold, the kind of silence that follows a final diagnosis. Alexei had always prided himself on reading people. Photography helped with that. He had trained himself to notice angles, light, the tiny flickers in a person's face that revealed more than their words ever could. But with Kira, maybe he'd stopped looking. Maybe he'd wanted to stop. He stood suddenly, his body moving with a purpose he didn't fully understand. He pulled open the drawer where Kira kept her gym things, a bottle of dry shampoo, spare socks, her second phone charger, and there it was. Her yoga mat was still in the corner, unused, still rolled tight. His throat tightened. Gee, wasn't it yoga? He closed the drawer slowly, heart now pacing with the kind of rhythm that made you feel slightly disconnected from your own limbs, as if his body were a step ahead of his conscience. There were two options. Confront her, explode, shatter everything, or stay quiet, watch, wait. He chose the latter. The coffee shop on Bolshaya Moskovskaya always smelled like cinnamon and fresh ink from newspapers no one read anymore. It was his usual spot, familiar, detached. It gave him space to think without being recognized or interrupted. He sat at the corner table, facing the street, rain blurring the outlines of passing strangers. The city felt more honest in weather like this, slippery, gray, full of reflection and distortion. He had her phone again. She left it charging in the kitchen that night. Maybe by mistake. Maybe she just didn't expect him to care. He went deeper this time. The messages weren't just flirtation. They were routine, nicknames, inside jokes, a shared language, plans. One message included a half-joking mention Your wife won't even notice. You've got this down. Your wife? Not the woman you're seeing, not Kira. Your wife? Your wife? Alexei leaned back in his seat, the sting behind his eyes unfamiliar. He wasn't a man prone to tears. He preferred logic, structure, but this... It didn't fit into any framework he could rationalize. Who was this man? He copied the number from her phone to his own, did a reverse lookup through a contact tracing app he once used for scouting photo clients. One match. Denis Volkov, age 36, occupation real estate consultant. The app even showed a business listing, a photo, a smile too white to be honest. Done it. Alexei whispered the name like a question, as if tasting it might reveal something more. He stared at the man's face on the screen. There was something familiar about him. And then he remembered the photo he'd taken of Kira a few weeks ago, shooting in film, his old Minolta. She'd been standing outside a cafe, talking to someone just off frame. He hadn't paid attention then, but now he did. He made a mental note to develop that role tonight. The answers weren't in what Kira told him. They were in what she never said, and he was going to find them. The click of the door unlocking echoed louder than it should have. Kira came home just past noon, humming a tune she probably didn't realize she was singing. She dropped her gym bag on the floor by the closet, peeled off her hoodie, and walked into the kitchen with the casual grace of someone who still believed their performance was airtight. Alexander was already there, pretending to scroll through a news feed on his laptop, a mug of lukewarm coffee beside him. He looked up, smiled, not too wide, and asked, "How was yoga?" She blinked, just for a moment, barely perceptible, then returned the smile with a soft shrug. Good. Crowded, though. She moved to the sink, poured herself water. Katya brought a new friend. Super flexible, show-off level. He watched her back, her posture, the delay before each word. He used to believe her without thinking. Now he analyzed her like a photograph with too much contrast. Something was always either too bright or too dark. He nodded. "You left your mat?" She froze, then laughed it off. "Seriously? Ugh. I must have taken Katya's by mistake. I wasn't really paying attention this morning." She turned and kissed his cheek before heading to the bedroom, trailing a breeze of citrus shampoo behind her. Alexander didn't move. He listened to the drawers opening, the sound of her unpacking a life he no longer shared. He opened his laptop, pulled up the reverse search app again, and rechecked the profile. Denis Volkov, 36.div, divorced, self-employed, no mutual connections, no tags with Kira on social media. The man was careful. But Alexei was better. That evening, he pulled out the roll of film and loaded it into his old tank for development. There was a discipline to it, measuring chemicals, timing exposures, drawing negatives on a line like secrets waiting to be read. Frame by frame, the world emerged. One in particular stood out. Kira, turning away from the lens, half smile frozen mid-expression, and just behind her, out of focus, but visible, him! Dennis! Standing too close, not quite touching, but the body language told a different story. It wasn't just a fling, there was history there. Alexei held the wet strip of negatives against the light. His fingers shook, not from rage, but recognition. This wasn't random. She had known him before. Days passed. He didn't confront her. He didn't accuse. He studied her instead. The way she suddenly became more affectionate. Cooking dinner again, asking how his day went, trying to thread a needle of guiltless routine while walking through a minefield of lies. He said little, smiled just enough. It was easy. People always assume silence means forgiveness or ignorance. He changed the passwords on their shared bank account, quietly withdrew half of what they'd saved, opened a new one under a freelance alias he'd once used, started transferring small amounts disguised as business expenses. She didn't notice, or pretended not to. Then came the second message. Same number, same tone, same emoji. Next time at yours, or still playing happy husband? This time it made his blood run cold, not with pain, but with something sharper. Focus. Alexei needed a second set of eyes. Not a friend, not family. Someone who had no stake. He called Mikhail, an old acquaintance from his college days, now a semi-retired private investigator who owed him a favor. They met in a silent bar near Sinaya Square, red lighting casting everything in slow-burning dread. "I'm not asking you to follow her," Alexei said carefully. "I just need to know who this guy is. Really?" Mikhail raised an eyebrow. "Denis Volkov. That's the name?" Alexei nodded. "He's not just a guy she met on the street. There's something else." Mikhail wrote the name down, tapped his pen twice on the paper. "You want dirt or truth?" "They're often the same thing," Alexei replied. 2 days later, he had a file in his hands. Denis had a history of relationships with married women, quiet divorces, lawsuits settled under NDAs. Real estate was just a front. His real skill was manipulation, charm, making women feel alive again. right before draining their accounts and moving on. But that wasn't all. 4 years ago, Denise had worked with a woman named Kira R. They weren't just reconnecting, they never disconnected. Alexei sat on a park bench overlooking the Neva. The fog was thicker today. It suited his mood. The city looked like it had secrets, and for once, he did too. He pulled out a small digital recorder from his coat pocket, pressed record, and began speaking in a low, deliberate voice. Not to her, to himself. I know what you are. I know who he is. I'm not here to hurt you, not yet. But if this is a game, I'm done pretending to play fair. The pieces were aligning. But this wasn't a crime story. This was personal, and Alexei was just getting started. The coffee shop on Obodny Canal was nearly empty when Alexei arrived. Early morning fog clung to the glass, blurring the view of passing trams and shivering pedestrians. He chose a booth by the wall facing the door, back to the kitchen. Always watching. Always listening. All right, he didn't bring the file Mikhail gave him. It was burned into his memory now. Every court record, every blurred photograph, every woman who had once looked at Denis Volkov the same way Kira did now. But what haunted Alexei most wasn't Denis. It was that photograph. The one he'd developed in his darkroom. The one where Denis stood just behind Kira 4 years ago. The date matched the beginning of Kira's professional shift when she said she needed space to grow, started working longer hours, changed her hair, joined yoga. It wasn't just burnout, it was a transformation. He had missed it, or ignored it. The bell above the door jingled. A tall woman stepped in, her coat soaked at the edges, eyes scanning the room with a practiced detachment. She looked older than the photo Alexei had seen in the file, but only slightly. Anya. The name had come up once in the notes Mikhail provided, a name tied to both Kira and Denis. She had been listed as a business contact, but the implication was deeper. Alexei stood. She approached slowly, eyeing him with caution. "You're the husband?" she asked. "Yes, you're the ghost." She gave a dry smile. "I guess I am." They sat, ordered nothing. "I don't owe you anything," Anya began, voice low. "But I'm tired of pretending none of it happened." Alexei said nothing, letting silence do the work. "Denis and Kira, they've been circling each other for years," she continued. "It was always complicated, but I can tell you this. Whatever you think you know about Kira, there's more. Always more." Alexei leaned forward. "Did she love him?" Anya laughed bitterly. "She didn't need to. He made her feel untouchable. That was always his trick." "She's not stupid," Alexei said. "No, she's desperate. Or terrified, or both." That word stuck, terrified. "What would she be afraid of?" he asked. Anya hesitated, then reached into her bag. "A USB drive. She came to me 2 months ago, said she was in over her head, said she wanted out. I told her it was too late." Alexei stared at the small silver object between them. "She didn't cheat to hurt you," Anya said. "She did it to survive something." Alexei's fingers curled into his palm. "How noble." Anya's gaze hardened. "You asked me to come here. I'm not here to make you feel better." He pocketed the drive. "She's planning something," Anya added. "I don't know what, but if she's still in contact with him, she's either being pulled in or she's trying to pull him down." At home, the apartment was quiet. Kira was out again. Brunch with Lyra. Though Alexei now assumed that was just code for another meeting with Denis or whoever else made her feel alive. He loaded the USB drive into his laptop, scanning the folders, PDFs, audio files, screenshots. One folder labeled Confession. It was a recording. He hesitated, then hit play. Kira's voice, slightly shaken. "If you're hearing this, it means I didn't get out in time. I never meant to destroy us, you and me, but I let something in years ago, and it never really left. Denis wasn't just a lover. He was something darker, and I was too curious. Too stupid. There are things I did I can't take back. Things I thought I had control over, I didn't. Not really." Alexei's throat dried. "I'm scared, Leisha. Not of you. Of what I might do if I don't stop him first. I'm sorry. I really am." He sat in silence. The tension inside him didn't loosen. It twisted. She wasn't innocent, but she wasn't simple either. That night he cooked dinner. Risotto. Her favorite. They ate in silence, their conversation reduced to empty phrases and shared glances that meant nothing and everything. Afterwards, she touched his shoulder lightly. "You've been distant," she said. "I'm just tired." She nodded, lips tight. "Work?" He smiled. "Something like that." They moved around each other like actors rehearsing a scene they knew by heart, only this time the script had changed. Only one of them knew it. Later, Alexei opened the drawer beside the bed and checked the small digital recorder. Still working. Still recording. He listened to the last few seconds of tape. The sound of her voice in the other room, low, hurried, whispering into her phone. We don't have much time left. He's starting to ask questions. She hadn't said his name, but it didn't matter. She knew he knew, which meant the end game was near. And Alexei, for the first time, wasn't afraid of it. He was ready. The table was set. 6 plates, polished glasses, a ceramic bowl of salad in the center no one would touch. Kira had arranged the silverware herself, smiling as if the air weren't thick with tension. She wore a green dress she hadn't worn in years, the kind that whispered memories he no longer trusted. Alexei looked calm, too calm. Crisp shirt, sleeves rolled, his camera sat on the windowsill, lens cap off, angled toward the room as if by accident. The guests arrived one by one, her sister, a cousin, their mutual friends, people who didn't know they were walking into a war zone, dressed like it was just another Saturday. They ate, they talked, laughed even, a little, too loudly. Kira leaned into every story, every question, playing the role of loving wife with the desperation of a drowning actor. Alexei barely spoke. He let her perform until dessert. He stood up slowly, tapped the side of his glass once, just once. I want to share something with everyone, he said, his voice smooth, almost disarmingly warm. Kira's fork paused, mid-air. He reached toward the speaker on the shelf and tapped his phone. A voice filled the room. Not his, not hers. God, last night, I can still taste you. A nervous chuckle broke the silence. Someone assuming it was a prank, until the voice added, greater than, you're mine, Kira. He doesn't have a clue. The air turned leaden. Kira's eyes widened. Her hand trembled as she reached for her wine. Alexei let the audio finish, then stepped forward, placing a slim folder on the table in front of her. Inside, bank statements, photographs, a printed email chain, a short but comprehensive obituary for their marriage. I've already filed, he said. The accounts are closed. The keys are changed. You don't need to pack. I had your things delivered to the address you gave him. Kira stared at the folder, but said nothing. Someone at the table whispered, Jesus. Alexei looked around the room, then back at her. You had choices, you still do, but this part, this story, it's over. Kira opened her mouth, perhaps to defend herself, perhaps to deny it all, but he was already walking away, calm, composed, past the stunned silence and the shattered illusion. He didn't need to hear her explanation. Not anymore. Later, alone, he stood on the edge of the Neva River. The morning fog was rolling in again, slow and silent, wrapping the city in uncertainty. His camera hung from his neck. He raised it slowly, took a shot of the water, the mist, the city dissolving into itself. He didn't feel peace or anger, just stillness. That was enough for now. His phone rang, a known number. He hesitated, then answered. A woman's voice, calm, precise. I know what happened. I know who she is. Alexei didn't move, just listened. If you want the whole truth, meet me tomorrow, alone. He looked at the horizon. For the first time in weeks, he smiled. Just a flicker. I'm listening, he said. And just like that, the story wasn't over. Not yet.